Oh, hello everybody. I'm glad you didn't run off to the beer or the pizza or whatever you're taking. Who's expecting management through PowerShell? What is everybody else expecting?
Beer, and pizza.
That's a little out of my budget, but I changed my session a little bit last minute. Earlier this week I did a PowerShell session at the Danish PowerShell user group, and it was SIM explained. I had 3 hours, so it was very well received. And remote management through PowerShell is basically current technology, and SIM is where Microsoft is going. So I decided to change my session. So it's becoming SIM explained. For the people who don't know me, my name is Jeff Wouters. I'm from the Netherlands. I've got a few Microsoft M certified something. Since the 1st of April this year, Microsoft awarded me with the PowerShell MVP award. So I received the email, congratulations, and the first thing I did was call my best buddy, dude, not funny. The 1st of April, I was thinking he made a joke, but apparently he wasn't. If you need me on social media, just search for my name, I'm there. The agenda will be the basics about SIM, WMI versus SIM. There are no developers here, or is there any developer? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about object-oriented programming, and with a little bit I do mean just a little bit. SIM instances, we're going into that. The practical theory, like why should you want it, and the demo, of course. So, let me first ask a question. Who of you is using SIM? Nobody. Let me rephrase the question. Who is using WMI? Second sentence. Let me ask the question again. Who is using SIM? So basically, WMI is Microsoft's implementation of SIM. SIM isn't a Microsoft invention, it's an open standard. So Cisco, HP, Dell, NetApp, they're all implementing SIM, or they've done it already. And Microsoft is using SIM ever since SMS 2.0. And in Windows Server 2000, it came into the operating system. So SIM itself is a proven technology. Microsoft's implementation of SIM, named WMI, had some advantages and disadvantages. And when they introduced the SIM commandlets in PowerShell in Windows Server 2012 and Windows 8, they are approaching SIM in a different way, which is more performance friendly. So SIM is an invention or idea, an open standard from DMTF. It's a company I had the pleasure to talk to at Synergy, and they're all about open standards. So their open standards are also, for example, SMIS. Are any of you aware of that protocol or standard? It's to do with storage. Smash is also one of their things. So what will be, at least with Microsoft, they are heavily investing on the Open Management Interface, OMI. And SIM is a small part of it, but a very important part. And as you will notice in a few minutes, SIM is the basis of a whole lot of other open standards. So, like I said, WMI, it's been there for quite a while. It has disadvantages. For example, it uses DCOM and live objects, and it dies at a reboot. So if I have a huge script that requires the target device to reboot, I have to do some fancy scripting to notice the device coming online again and continue with the script. SIM is a little bit more intelligent, for the matter. It integrates with PowerShell jobs. The PowerShell jobs survive a reboot. WMI doesn't. So also SIM WMI is uses, like I said, DCOM, not very firewall friendly, and the three bullets I put underneath. DCOM, no security. Documentation is terrible. Discoverability, none whatsoever. So WSMan is pretty well documented. Security. Do you want SSL? Do you want encryption? It's all there. And discoverability, well, SIM not exactly, but PowerShell, it is all about discoverability. So if you use PowerShell and SIM together, you can learn SIM, the options that are available through PowerShell very quickly. And the most important thing, like I said, WMI uses live objects, SIM uses inert objects. So who of you has been to the session from Carl Webster about his documentation scripts? Well, he mentioned a little thing in there, like he released his WMI scripts on a server farm, and the server farm went down, the entire farm. I think that's somehow, at least it has something to do with the fact that WMI uses live objects. So I've advised Carl to use SIM commands instead. And I've noticed from performance testing that it's like 4, 5, 6 times even less intrusive than WMI. So WMI, it's still there. It's not bad, by the way. Just SIM does it better. So WMI for the .NET programmers on you. System.management object is the .NET class. SIM has an entire own class. So instead of taking SIM and making it their own implementation, Microsoft decided, well, let's use SIM to the full and implement it next to WMI. So Microsoft.management.infrastructure.sim instance. It's now part of the management infrastructure for Microsoft in the operating system. It's part of the big picture. Also, WMI is about objects, because Windows is about objects. SIM, like it's an open standard, they decided, well, we're not about objects. We're about classes and instances. Okay, PowerShell, to the part I like. WMI has a few commandlets in PowerShell. SIM has a few more. So with SIM, it's a little bit different way of thinking. We'll see that in the demo. With WMI, you can basically get an object and put the methods or properties behind it. You can do with a workaround the same with SIM, but if you want to do it properly, you have to use the commandlets together. We'll get to that. So object-oriented programming, that's the little bit I told you for developers. The community likes to use different words for the same thing. Like instance is the same as an object. So where WMI uses the name object, SIM uses instance. They're talking about the same thing. Class equals type. But a class or a type consists out of either both attributes, data fields, or your visual, and methods or code blocks. So code blocks are intended as methods, but programmers will use them basically for anything that isn't an attribute. And since it's a platform, I thought it was a nice analogy. You've got, like I said, you've got instances, you've got classes. So, what type of beverage do you want? What class of beverage do you want, exactly? So, I want an instance of coffee. A coffee is a sort of beverage. So, but coffee, follow the lines downstairs instead of up. Coffee consists out of cappuccino and latte. coffee, you don't have to define again. Coffee consists out of beans and water. But coffee is what we call a base class. You've got a bunch of base classes, like the elements in nature, and on top of those elements, you build other molecules, other classes. So the easy thing about Sim is that as a programmer, you don't have to define your own classes. You can just say, well, this is a class that kind of looks like mine, but it does too much. Or at least there's a difference between that class and my class. So all a programmer has to do is define what's the difference. That's it. So less code, and the system does the comparison and makes a class for you. Practically, let's take a pyramid. You've got your foundation stone. Your foundation stone has an attribute, the point of the center. The next stone that goes on top also needs the point of the center because it has to be in the middle. And it is a percentage of the original stone, foundation stone. So if you define this correctly, you've got one stone, second stone, third stone, fifth stone. So only with two attributes you can define your stones. This is how Sim operates. You have got base elements, base classes, and you work from there. So the goal of Sim is to allow multiple entities, multiple parties to communicate with each other through the same open standard. And for example, what is a storage array over here is also a storage array over there. So why don't you give it the same name? Then you know from each other what you're talking about. That's the main principle behind Sim. But just talking to each other about objects, about data isn't enough. You also want to manage this data. You want to manipulate it. So the methods are also here. The Sim base schema, there's the base again, like the base elements. Sim has a bunch of base schemas. Also a vendor can define their base schemas, and other vendors can build on top of those schemas. So the same as a class is built on top of another class, you can build a schema on top of another schema. Just point out the difference, or add what is yours and what isn't in the base, and you're done. You don't have to redefine the base again. And Sim is the basis for WBEN, Smash, and like I said, SMIS. So Splunk is here. So I looked on their website. They're using Sim. And they were so kind to define a few of their schemas. So authentication access protection is Splunk the only one that uses this? Of course not. Microsoft uses this, Citrix uses this. So they've got the base schema from Sim and they build on top of this. The idea is that through Sim, Splunk and Citrix and Microsoft can communicate with each other almost universally. If you want to find this, just look on common, like here, common information model, Sim, and the vendor you like, HP, they've got it. So before we go to the demo, any questions so far? No? Everybody actually got it? PowerShell user group will ask you me, so any questions? I don't bite. Okay. Then it's time for the demo. So what I've done is I've created two virtual machines. One 2012 domain controller where I'm working on, and one Windows 7 virtual machine to communicate against for a specific part of the demo. Because SIM talks to SIM. So Windows 2012 can talk to Windows 8, but natively, for example, not to Windows XP. Windows XP doesn't know SIM. Only WMI, the Microsoft implementation of SIM. But the funny thing, you can force SIM to behave like WMI. So you can talk to legacy operating systems. We'll get to that in a few seconds. A practical reason to use SIM first I have to clean up because I checked a few things before I started. Done. Okay. Who has ever done this? Basically, get a time from the machine through WMI. What you get back is an epoch time. You've got methods to convert it to a long date, a short date, all of those things. Well, what you can do is use .NET classes to convert it also. That's more programmer way.
Gibberish. Wrong language.
It's not exactly PowerShell, no. But SIM. SIM is a lot like PowerShell. So SIM automatically converts this for you. In the background it is still epoch time. So if you want to subtract certain dates and times from each other, the system can still do it. And again, it will convert the output for you. That's one of the more practical reasons I found for day-to-day job for scripters. So, with WMI, you can rather easily use a method. Just get the WMI value from the system, put it in a variable, and put the method behind the variable. SIM works a little bit differently. We've got SIM classes, so let's take this one. I put it in a variable. Now, what methods are attached to this class? This is how easily you find them. Well, there is a method called create. Let's look at that. And the parameters attached. This is the PowerShell way how you can discover things. So you can discover SIM through the way you're used to in PowerShell. But that's all looking up stuff. So let's start up Notepad. That's my Notepad. One little thing, if the current directory, you don't have access to this current directory, or the current directory doesn't exist, the one you put in, nothing will open, it won't give an error. So that's something you have to watch out for. But of course, now I've got a Notepad. Nice. Closing it, also a single command. You can also do this remotely. One of the more practical things in my deployment scripts is I work with network interface cards. So I'm getting through SIM the network interface cards with Hyper-V specifically in the name. So I've got it. And now I want to know what associated instances are attached to this instance. Like I said, you can build a class upon a class. But if you use a class, practically it becomes an instance. It's also old terminology. But so if you can build a class upon a class, and when you use a class it becomes an instance, and logically you can use instance and build on top of that another instance, an associated instance. There are quite a few. So we can either go upstairs and search for the one we want. Well, I'm lazy. First, let's look up what options there are. Also quite a few. And to give you an idea how much work it can be for searching it, Microsoft has been so kind to divide them in certain groups, in type names. So every instance, every type name is shown here specifically. It is not one humongous list, but they made some order into the chaos. So if you would want the sim class associated instance, you may have to search a little. And like I said, I don't like it. So I know the name already, I looked it up already. So in this associated instance, there are also classes. It's an entire construct of links. The picture I've shown you about the beverage, the coffee, and there were a few lines drawn in between. True class and instances aren't really like that. It's way more complicated. What I've shown you was an oversimplification, but it gives you an idea how it works. So, I've got my SIM associated instance from my network interface card, and when I selected the SIM class, there was a list, and network adapter configuration was one of them. This one. So when I execute this code, I know, for example, that this network interface card isn't DHCP enabled. Through WMI, you have to actually know what you're looking for to find it. Through SIM and PowerShell, you can find it. It takes some time. But once you know it, and you know how the PowerShell way works, it's rather easy to find it. Who here has ever worked with PowerShell remoting? Only 5 people? Okay, 6. So PowerShell remoting works a little bit like an SSH session. You put up a session towards your target device or devices, and you work from there. SIM, as the name a SIM session, but it isn't an SSH session. It's nothing even like it. So when you work with WMI, it works a little bit differently. You put on a command, you give a target device, and it will execute against the target device. Every single command you execute, it will establish a connection, do its thing. Close the connection, next command, establish the connection, do your thing, etc., etc. SIM is a little bit smarter. It makes a session one time, it pushes everything towards it, and when it's done, it closes the session. So, to give you an idea what you have to work with, get, new, remove. And there's new SIM session option. Like I told you before, SIM knows security. We'll get to that in a few seconds. You can define that through a SIM session option. So we're back to the BIOS. This works because it's working against my local machine. So this does exactly the same thing. I basically put in the name of my local machine. So between WMI and SIM implementation within PowerShell, they tried another thing called WSMan. SIM communicates over WSMan, like I've shown before, not DCOM. So PowerShell implementation of WSMan has its commandlets, and you can use that. You can actually get output similar like WMI commandlets. So let's use this. And as you can see, it's a lot more. The downside, WSMan gives output like XML. And most IT pros don't really like to work with XML files. With the exception of the guys from RES Software, that's their building blocks. So, SIM provides the exact same output as WMI, but it works over WSMan. So the difference, SIM is firewall friendly. WMI isn't exactly. You have to open ports, hope that the firewall isn't blocking it, and preferably there's some network administrator has forgotten to open a port. So that's why there are SIM sessions. The default authentication for WSMan works. But again, this works locally. So now I'm going outside against my Windows 7 machine. This will eventually give an error. I'm not waiting for this. I have to wait a few seconds for it actually to stop, because IntelliSense in ISE doesn't work right now because it's stopping. It stopped. So authentication, by default it uses the default. There are a few other options. So Pret SSP, for example, is in there. You can use it. So security people like this. So I'm skipping a little bit to the end. Like I said, the SIM session option has options to define. For example, the protocol is DCOM, default, or WSMan. SIM session here you can define a certificate thumbprint, credential. So security is throughout the commandlets and SIM implementation in PowerShell. And new SIM instance you can push towards an already open SIM session. Like I said before, you put up the session once and you use it. When you're done, you close it. So let's go. I'm putting up the information in my variable for the SIM session option. I'm using these options to configure a session. And this will fill again. Why will this fill? My target device is a Windows 7 machine. No updates. It doesn't know SIM. And there's my error. WinRM cannot be contacted basically. So there's a command for that. Test WSMan. SIM works over WSMan. So computer name. This will also give an error. So you can script it in a way that you test, you check for test WSMan to work or not, and with this define the protocol to use, either WSMan or DCOM. That's my error. So we'll use DCOM, not the default.
But if the test gives the error as well, then it isn't much for a test program, of course.
Yes and no. So if it gives an error, then automatically WSMan can't reach and SYN won't work. The SYN native protocol. So you can script it like, well, if that doesn't work, make the protocol decom. And that's what we'll see now. Now it works. So you're basically checking and fooling your own script. Well, if it doesn't work, here's my workaround. Go ahead. Watch out with this. Like Carl Webster encountered, if it behaves like WMI, you get all the crap that comes with it. So it's using live objects right now and using big scripts on production servers may break the stuff.
Jeff?
Yeah?
When you install WSMan on the Windows 7 box, it would work with the other protocol?
Yes and no, because SYN talks through WSMan, but if the other machine doesn't really know SYN, like the latest updates in WSMan on Windows 7, then it won't work. If it has the latest update and WSMan installed, it should work.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. What is the minimum operating system to make this work with WSMan?
By default. So
with all the updates.
with all the updates and okay, then Windows 7 should work. Windows XP will take some scripting like I've shown you.
Okay, and on the server side?
On the server side, basic same thing.
2003?
2003
Will not work.
created scripting. 2008, I don't know for sure. 2008 R2 updates and it should work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Same as with the server manager, they should come up then. Yeah, manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Still one or two of the will not work.
In 2008 and R2, I kind of agree with you. In 2012, it works better. So there are quite a few commands that actually work with SYN. The commands that are introduced with Windows Server 2012, like 60% of them work with SYN. So you can basically use the getNetAdapter command and redirect this to a SYN session. Like, yeah. Oh, this is something a student of mine found out. PowerShell is very useful for one-liners when you put things between not squiggly brackets, but these things. So,
Regular brackets.
oh, regular brackets. Yeah, okay. So, this won't work. With a lot of our PowerShell scripting techniques, you can basically put them between brackets, and it will define what's in between the brackets first, and then you can use it in the rest of the command. Within SYN instances and building a session like this won't work. The SYN session parameter redirects it to an already existing session. So this works. Yep. This one. And like I said, I've got the getNetAdapter. I'm redirecting this to the SYN session. And it seems I've broken my demo. Luckily I'm not the first today. See if this works. No. If this should have worked, then there's one detail, one gotcha. The computer name is not part of the default output. So, by using system name, you can make it part of the output. That's something you have to watch out for. So, although with ever since PowerShell version 1 and 2, people, trainers, presenters were screaming, use the PowerShell help. It's great, it's amazing. And in PowerShell version 3, they removed the help. So you can either watch it online by using man like this. Then it will automatically open your default browser and go to the internet website with help. So in this case, I'll advise you, especially for sim session and sim option, if you're using sim, read the help. It's a little bit tricky compared to WMI commandlets, and it's very easy to forget something and then you get errors and you'll start searching. So in the command, what's possible, a few parameters are available. Any questions so far?
Can you show us how to make a session with different credentials?
I only have one credential in this environment, and that's administrator.
Okay.
So what you could do
is this different than in WMI, because that's sometimes tricky if you have, if you make queries across domain boundaries or class boundaries.
Yes and no. You will have the same problems with authentication, like if you're using Kerberos authentication and you're connecting to another domain and you don't have a trust, yeah, that will be a problem. But
so is this Kerberos only, or is there a killer?
Let's take a look where I've had it.
Okay, there's a credential. Okay, you could switch to base.
Oh yeah. And since we're busy.
Okay, what is a credential? The password?
Oh.
You cannot.
Can you use PS credentials? Or?
What you could do exactly is get.
That's not good for scripts.
Correct. So there are tools available to integrate with pop-ups like this.
But you can get the identity through PS credentials, but not to the input. But
yes and no. What you could do, we had a great discussion in that PowerShell summit just about this, because we don't like to put credentials in script.
Sometimes you have to. I don't like it either, but sometimes you have to.
That was my point. We don't want to, and we made a request to find a solution for this. The only workaround we found that kinda was acceptable was hash the password, preferably also hash the username and or domain name, and use that. And that you can put in a plain file, and for example make it only readable for a certain account.
But if this command would accept PS credential, I can create the PS credential on the fly with a secure string.
Haven't tried it, but
I have.
okay.
So if this is a I don't know if this is a PS credential. Can you-
Yeah, that's.
Is this a
Yeah,
PS credential?
yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's the beauty about the PowerShell core team, at least. The product teams is a different story. But the core team are rather consistent in their usability of the parameters. So credential handles at one commandlet the same as with the other. There's one exception,
Okay.
and it's not credential. My current directory is empty, so
Path, right?
patch. Sounds like Klingon. So, when you're using get chunk item and the name parameter, it will only provide you the name. So, what you see here, I'm not using expand property, but the name of the property isn't there. It only provides you the name as output. The reason is in the help. I'm hoping it will be in the default help without having me updated the help on the system. So get help, get chunk item, no. The reason we'll get as soon as I find name. It isn't in there. Basically, with get child item, name is a switch thing. It's not a filter parameter, but it's a switch parameter. So, with get process name, you're getting actually the objects with the properties. There are a few gotchas that are technically totally explainable. But if you don't know them, they may cause you a headache. And this is not related to Sim, by the way. Up till now, I haven't found a real thing in Sim that's inconsistent or really annoying and not working. Well, I see our lovely Claire come in, so I've got like 5 minutes. In that case, any questions? In that case, end of demo time. We can skip that.
How could you know in advance?
Pre-cognition. So I was lucky enough to have to work on the PowerShell Deep Dive book. It's a book where about 30 authors worldwide worked together. Everybody did one chapter about a subject. All the authors were able to choose themselves. So one is using .NET reversible engineering. I'm doing avoiding the pipeline, or basically making your scripts efficient and faster. Just about any crazy subject, it's there. If you're new to PowerShell, this isn't the book to start with. And by Alex's request, again, if you want to contact me, just search for my name. I'm easy to find. Thank you.